I wouldn't be surprised if they just play standard. At this point, there's so much on the line.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're gonna see anything wacky.
It's turned into the final game of this best of 3, so it's essentially a best of 1 to decide which of these teams is one of the top 2 in the collegiate scene going into the finals. It's going to be Georgia Tech in the red side. If you're here to cheer for Georgia Tech, let me hear you.
And if you want to see UCSD in the final, let me hear it for UC San Diego. I think we got a little bit more support for UCSD, actually.
Yeah, I actually saw Gunrun raise his hands up there, and he's been working really hard in the background, so that's a lot of effort that he's going to be putting into cheering for UCSD, so a lot of props for him there.
That's true. Those arm lifts, they are strong.
So UCSD on the blue side, we're seeing a similar path to what they took through the first game. They're trying to go into the enemy jungle. If they can take the red buff away and completely limit Probo's ability to level up his jungle, that's going to make things very difficult. We see Dejo actually recalling already, so it's going to turn it into a 4v3 or 4v5 situation, something that Probo's just going to immediately run away from, try to reset, find a different buff to go to.
Unfortunately for UCSD, because their level 1 was scary. They have the Rupture, they have the Morgana binding, they have the Area of Effects stun, but not just that, they've got a Blitzcrank hook. Blitzcrank hook just screams, "Dear God, please invade." And unfortunately for them, the binding went out, not hitting anybody, and Georgia Tech saw it and adjusted quickly, and it looks like they're going to have a pretty okay start, but the bottom lane looping down into the jungle. This could be a 2v3 situation.
Yeah, it is a 2v3. Oh no, they're going to pull the red buff away. A beautiful job by UCSD. It just took a little bit of cooldown and mana from Blitzcrank, but that's going to delay the red steal attempt from Probo, make it a little bit more difficult for him to get through the jungle. Meanwhile, if we take a look at the top jungle, we're just seeing Cho'Gath and Jax linking up here with the red buff on Divination. They're going to be able to do a lot of damage against Jewel Bagel here. It's going to be coming down. The Feral Scream is going to keep him silenced, not allow him to actually counter with anything, but it's only level 2 and 1 for Jax, so he's not able to follow it up with anything. A little bit of a good idea, but not actually able to convert it into any sort of kill.
It was a good idea, but unfortunately for Divination, he took his Feral Scream, so he didn't have the Rupture. If he had the Rupture, he would have been able to get that bounce, which would have gotten Sokorean in... would have gotten him in range to be able to use that stun, and Sokorean already looking to trade, but Jewel Bagel dodging the stun, so this is going to be a testament to how comfortable Jewel Bagel is on this Olaf. He is chunking Sokorean early in this game.
Yeah, this is a completely different game than what we saw in game number 1, where Jewel Bagel had Shen, wasn't completely comfortable with it, wasn't able to turn it into anything, and got completely shut down by Sokorean. But with Divination coming back with red and blue buff, that's going to be a stun from the Counter-Strike of Sokorean. Jewel Bagel just barely able to get away. Ignite was already burned. He did not or he did actually have to use his Ghost to get away from it, but still, Ignite for Ghost, not a bad trade for him. Flash are also coming out from Sokorean.
And there are the jukes once again from Jewel Bagel. He's so strong on this Olaf, so if he's able to just stay alive, because it seems like Divination wants to camp that top lane. He does not want Jewel Bagel to get going once again, because with every level up of Jewel Bagel, that's more true damage down onto Sokorean, which is going to make it harder and harder for him to farm his items. And Jax really has that threshold. Once he gets 1 or 2 major items, especially once he hits that Triforce, that's where he is so terrifying. But if he doesn't get there, it's going to put UCSD behind so much, because they're relying on that mid to late game presence from Jax, which has to start with him getting going. And if he can't get going, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it's already happening so far. Jewel Bagel doing a great job of controlling this lane, able to throw out his axe a little bit, just capturing it again. But here we see a third gank attempt coming out here, but it is a 2v2 situation. Jewel Bagel is going to go behind the turret, trying to get away from it. It is going to be a leap strike into the counter strike to slow him up a little bit, but a nice juke coming out from him. Lee Sin coming in here, it is going to be a 2v2 situation. If he can get the first kill onto Sokorean, that would be perfectly fine. Diana coming in to turn it into a 3v3 with Morgana. They do get first blood, going to Georgia Tech once again. Can they turn it into a second kill? The Ignite goes down, Diana picks up the second kill, and Morgana's going to get forced out as well. Not actually able to turn it into any kills for UCSD. Great start for Georgia Tech.
Once again, that is not what UCSD wanted in that start. Juke City, seriously, from Jewel Bagel as Dejo dodges a Blitzcrank hook. Jewel Bagel and Probo both dodged the edge of the Rupture, and they went back, which was so counterintuitive, where you just want to get away from that gank as soon as possible, because you think, oh god, it's Jax, I gotta get away, he's gonna stun me, I'm gonna go Rupture, I'm dead. But they kept their cool, and they were able to turn around and kill. Chrysanthos also identified the situation and showed that Diana is able to be a presence even at the lower levels, and Heartbeat just wasn't able to do anything because he doesn't have the Morgana ult yet.
Yeah, those Yellow Jackets back in Georgia must be a buzz right now with their home team doing extremely well. This is the start for the third game that they wanted to ride on the momentum of game number 2. Exactly what they want to do, but they can't let it get to their heads. Like we were talking about in game number 2, they need to take that advantage, they need to push it, but they can't push it too far. There's a huge minion wave coming up here with SoKorean in the top lane. It's something that JewelBeagle's going to need to be defensive about, but with that Philosopher's Stone, he's going to have a little bit of extra regeneration, be able to hold his own, and keep those minions away from the turret at least.
Yeah, those 2 assists are seriously going to help JewelBeagle. He's already starting to pull ahead. He's only about 300, 400 gold ahead, but having that Philosopher's Stone is just going to allow him to stay in lane, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to stay in lane, and he wants to make SoKorean's life as miserable as he possibly can. SoKorean's already died once, and Divination has died as well, so he's lost those buffs. He's going to be a little bit behind. He's not going to be able to put on the pressure that he wants to. Probo, on the other hand, has been a terror on Lee Sin in game 2, and he's continuing that trend in game 3, being mobile and just making his presence known. But beyond that, it's almost like he's just chasing Divination around, because it seems like every time Divination goes for a gank, Probo is there.
Well, he's there when he needs to be. That's the thing. The first 2 ganks that Divination had, it was something that they knew that JewelBeagle would have been able to get away on his own. Even JewelBeagle only used 1 summoner spell in the SoKorean's 2. That allowed it to have be a very good setup for when Probo came back for that 3rd gank of Divination, which turned into Georgia Tech's favor.
Taking a closer look at the item build, or excuse me, at the skill build, JewelBeagle is actually leveling up his Undertow first. So he's going to be able to get some extra ranged harass onto SoKorean. He doesn't really want to fight him at melee range because of that empowered strike. SoKorean actually leveling up his leap strike first. So he wants to get that initial hit off of the empowered strike. But JewelBeagle making sure that he's getting a little bit of a lower cooldown on the axe, as well as a little bit of extra damage. And once he builds out that Shurelya's, that is going to continue to get more and more painful.
Absolutely, and this pain is going to be a team effort for the entire Georgia Tech lineup. We see Chrysanthos going for that Haunting Guise earlier on. It's going to give him a little bit of magic penetration, so he's able to trade even better in these team fights. He's staying very close to Heartbeat in the minion kills so far, but that little extra kill and assist he has available to him is going to allow him to trade even nicer. He didn't need to go for any Doran's Rings earlier on, and he's still going to be a huge threat in this mid game.
And continuing on the vein of skill order, Arcanite has actually been leveling up his Phosphorus Bomb, so he wants to get some early game harass, but it doesn't look like it's been that effective because Deadjo and Shizoli are holding it, and it looks like Heartbeat might be getting caught out.
Yeah, this is a jump attempt. Chrysanthos was in the lower jungle of the blue team, was able to come around and pincer Heartbeat a little bit. They took about half health away from him. They forced the flash. It's exactly what they wanted to do, but they didn't invest that much into it. They were able to back away, just allow Chrysanthos to go into lane. No blue buff for either mid laner quite yet, but we're going to see Chrysanthos back away, grab his blue buff before we see Morgana go for hers.
And look at that pressure as Chrysanthos picks up the blue buff. The pressure on JewelBeagle, forcing SoKorean to his turret, and just putting a ward out to continue the pain train. It's Olaf. He's got the Philosopher's Stone. He's just going to spam his axes, and it looks like they're just spamming it, going for the tree damage, walking up, picking him up, and doing it again. Rinse and repeat, and SoKorean can't respond. He's just chugging down potions and trying to farm as best as he can.
Yeah, and at the same time, the rest of the lanes are putting on a lot of pressure as well, so there's no way that anyone from the UCSD lineup can come away from mid lane or from bottom lane to help out SoKorean in that top lane. So he's on his own, and he's on his own in a very dangerous situation.
He really is. And looking at the bottom lane, UCSD wanted to convert early kills. They haven't done that yet. Looking at the minion kills, Arcanite starting to pull ahead a little bit, but Deadjo is making sure that he stays in range. Oh, there's the crescendo though. Shizoli getting caught out of position, exhaust going down, but here comes the teleport from JewelBeagle. He might be able to try and clean this one up. Deadjo is extremely low, but he is continuing to fight. They're going to turn on Arcanite. Arcanite is out of mana. He could very easily go down, but Divination is there. The flash going in. They want to turn this around onto Deadjo, but JewelBeagle picking up Arcanite. Deadjo in trouble though. Divination extremely low. JewelBeagle going to be able to run out of her. He did pop the ghost. He did pop the ultimate, but one pop could spell trouble. But Chrysanthos there. There's the flash. The ignite going down onto high there, but there's the bounce, and that is going to be the disengage. But it looks like JewelBeagle still wants to go in. Chrysanthos being aggressive, but now Georgia Tech backing off, and wow, great teleport once again. Shizoli getting caught out, but it just wasn't enough as UCSD paying for their aggression.
Yeah, so much setup was put in there for Georgia Tech. They knew the ward was in the bush, so Shizoli, I can't ever say that right, was there. He was actually being brought out as a bait. They knew the teleport was set up to bring in Jewel Bagel from the top lane. Trading the support for the AD carry is exactly what you want to do in the bottom lane. It's going to give them a huge lead. The thing is, the follow-up that Georgia Tech had, none of it converted. They brought down their mid lane, which allowed Morgana to get a little bit of extra free farm in the mid, also put on a little bit of hurt to the turret. So we're going to have to see as it moves a few more minutes into this game whether or not that paid off, but it was still a really good idea overall for them and showed that they have a lot of follow-up potential if they time everything properly.
It definitely was. Unfortunately for Dead Joe, he wasn't able to stay in lane because he was so low, and Hi could have very easily auto-attacked him. Hi going in, wanting to be aggressive again, but a smart quick draw from Dead Joe, baiting out the hook for a quick draw. I'll take a Jewel Bagel going extremely low, and So Korean getting those double Doran's Blade. He's starting to get to that point where Jack starts to become a little bit scary, so we'll have to see if he's going to be able to convert maybe 1 or 2 kills, because Jewel Bagel's really low, and he just got back to lane.
Almost 11.5 minutes into the game, Georgia Tech's only up by 700 gold, but here we have a dive going onto Jewel Bagel. A lot of damage coming out from So Korean, but he does get the tower aggro. He's going to need to back away from that as Jewel Bagel pops a few potions and tries to stay alive. We're going to need to highlight here that the reason that So Korean was able to actually take that down is that the items that he spent his money on was a little bit of defense, which helps against the turrets, helps against the minions, and then 2 Doran's Blades. That's going to give him a lot of aggression, whereas Olaf on the other side, he went for those gold for 5s. He's going for the long game. That makes it so that this mid game right now is not in his favor, and that's where we see him get taken out.
Unfortunately for Jewel Bagel, a Heart of Gold giving you a little bit of extra health, getting a little bit of extra health regen and mana regen, it's not going to block an Empowered Strike. I guess the extra health will help you survive a little bit longer as Chrysanthos gets ignited. He's trying to dash out, but he does get stunned. There's the lockup as well as the snare. There's the true damage Nom Nom. But Probo coming in and kicks Divination in the face, says, no way, my AP carry is staying alive.
Yes, keeping everything pretty safe for Georgia Tech, but the gold lead has almost been evened up here, moving into the first attempt for Dragon. Both teams kind of posturing for that to be in the area. They want to get their vision control around it, but this is just what UCSD really wants. They've got the Cho'Gath, so they're going to have very, very good Dragon and Baron control when they move into the later game, and they're starting to get to the point where they can go toe-to-toe in lanes. Here we see a fight actually happening right down in the bottom lane.
Hi missing the hook, though, and Shizoli once again with the crescendos. Shizoli, with the counter-initiate crescendos, has been hitting every single one just to make sure that the disengage happens, and Divination has not been having any luck with these ganks. He's still a little bit ahead of Probo. Hi, unfortunately, grabbing a minion, the bane of every Blitzcrank existence, those minions.
At least you're grabbing something, it's not just thin air.
That's very true, Torch, but unfortunately for Divination, as he picks up this red buff, he's got the Philosopher's Stone and the Heart of Gold, which is a great opening for Cho'Gath as well as the Oracle, so he's going to be able to get some map control. He doesn't have that early pain train that Lee Sin has, especially a Lee Sin that has Wriggles already 13 minutes in.
And Blitzcrank left off on his own. Diana was looking to come down and turn that into a 2v1 situation, but just going to back off. She did get spotted by that ward in the tri-bush. Not a whole lot of ward awareness coming out from Georgia Tech. We saw Lee Sin trying to go for a lane gank into a ward that they should have known was there from Shizoli earlier in the game, but just knowing to back off when they saw what was happening from the other team, but not actually able to predict it for what was going on. And here Jewel Bagel's having a little bit of a skirmish with So Korean. It's gotten to the point, like we were talking about before, that So Korean's taken it so that he now has the advantage in lane. It's something that Jewel Bagel's okay with because he'll be able to do a lot of damage in team fights, but he's got to do something to keep his farm up.
And he's been doing a great job of staying ahead. So Korean getting really aggressive on Jewel Bagel, just trying to put as much pain as he can down, because Jewel Bagel's, with his W, is going to be able to heal a lot of that back if he's able to sit in there and just auto-attack. And So Korean's just going to back off because Chrysanthos is there. He wants the roam. He's Diana. But he's unfortunately walking through a Tri-Brush Ward, and he's going to have to go back. And while he's doing that, Heartbeat taking full advantage. 30 minion kills up, but there's a grab onto Shizoli.
Yeah, the grab onto Shizoli is going to trigger the fight in the bottom lane, but no, he's going to be able to quick draw away from, or both players are going to be able to get away from that sort of engagement. So nothing actually happening there. Just a little bit of a scare for the Georgia Tech fans on their benches at the moment. Meanwhile, in the top lane, we do see a gank attempt getting set up there. Lee Sin's waiting in the bushes, but Jax is not going to give him any sort of bait going on. He did get a few pings from his team saying, hey, you might want to be careful a little bit here. This is a very important match. A lot of stress is going to be on the line for all the players. So any sort of communication that the allies can give to a player is going to make it a little bit better for them as well.
That's the last thing that UCSD wants to do, is have their Jax go down to an early Lee Sin gang. And HiHi's been trying to do his best to zone them out. He's in a good position. We could see a grab going up, but Deadjo and Shizoli are escape artists on these hooks, and once the hook is down, Blitzcrank has lost almost all of his threat. Probo holding this lane so that Jewel Bagel is able to come back. He has the Kindle Gem now, so he's got increased cooldown reduction as well as that extra health, and with that tenacity, that's going to allow the stun to not... That's going to have the stun not be hitting as hard.
Oh, a little dangerous here. HiHi going in against Shizoli. He did see him with that ward. He's going to go for the grab, but didn't actually position him out of any dangerous zone. Corki or Cho'Gath were not available to follow that up with anything, but UCSD, once again, Soulkorean doing a great job against Jewel Bagel in the top lane. Jewel Bagel, however, coming back with a Heart of Gold and those Mercury Treads, so he's going to do Kindle Gem as well, so he's going to be doing completely fine compared to how he was before. However, Jax has not returned for a while. He's got a lot of gold in the bank. That's
very true. Jax, he's got about 13, almost 1,400 gold. Taking a look at that, so when he comes back, he's even able to buy a couple of major items. Maybe we'll go for a Phage and build straight into that Triforce to get a little bit of extra health that'll help offset a little or some of that true damage. But Jewel Bagel with the Mercury Treads, that's a great buy for him because the Empowered Strike deals magic damage, as well as every third hit is going to be dealing magic damage on the Jax ultimate. So that chain hit of the Empowered Strike plus the third ultimate hit, which normally chunks you pretty hard, Jewel Bagel is going to be able to take a little bit easier. And then the Kindle Gem with the extra health is going to allow him to stay in lane and heal up a little bit faster. So I really like these buys from Jewel Bagel, staying smart and making sure that he can contain this Jax, because that's really all you can do. You just got to contain the Jax.
So 17 minutes into the game, Georgia Tech is still up in kills, but they're falling down 300 gold. The farm is incredibly good for UCSD at the moment. Every single lane is at least slightly ahead of their lane partner, and that's going to give them a little bit more ground control in this area. We see that Probo still has not gotten an Oracles yet, instead going for those Vision Wards to be able to kind of clear out a little bit as well. Meanwhile, Cho'Gath has finished off his Boots of Mobility. He's able to zip around the map and keep the vision and the information advantage in UCSD's favor, but it doesn't matter. Georgia Tech is going for this dragon at the moment. Maybe not what they really want to have happen as they get cornered into this dragon pit.
And here comes the teleport coming in from Jewel Bagel. Probo goes extremely low and Arcanite is coming in. There's the ultimate. The Crescendo actually missing everybody, and Arcanite is kiting like a boss. Exhaust going down onto Jewel Bagel. Jewel Bagel trying to finish off Divination. Deadjo is actually going to get credit for that kill, and here comes Deadjo. HiHi taking out Jewel Bagel, but Chrysanthos is going to drop Arcanite by the skin of his teeth, finally taking out that with the shield. So that's going to be a 2-for-2 exchange. Yeah, and Deadjo took out the dragon, actually.
Yeah, 2 for 2. Dragon going in favor of Georgia Tech. A teleport was used by Jewel Bagel to get him in there. That was a huge difference of a 5v4 situation. Went in their favor. They're able to now take down the middle turret as well, seeing as Heartbeat and HiHi had to back out with sub 10% health. Very good positioning for Georgia Tech. They lost a lot of damage on the top turret, but let's take a look at a replay of how that actually went down.
So if you take a look at the start of this fight, you see that Georgia Tech is in a heap of trouble, but here comes the teleport coming down. Probo goes extremely low, but the Morgana ult misses everybody. Unfortunately, Shizoli's ult also hits everybody. There's Arcanite in the back, cleansing everything out, trying to deal as much damage as he can. Jewel Bagel gonna finally take out Divination. Deadjo actually gonna get credit for that, but HiHi's gonna turn around, take Jewel Bagel out, forcing a lot of flashes, and there's the tick. One orb is gonna do it. So Chrysanthos taking out Arcanite, but well played by Georgia Tech to make sure that they have their priorities straight. And their priorities were not kills, their priorities were getting the dragon. And once they had the dragon, they just turned, and it showed.
Yeah, and with that dragon, they were able to follow it up with that first turret kill for their favor. They were also able to take the red buff out of the enemy jungle. 19 minutes into the game, they took what was a 300 gold deficit, turned it into a 400 gold advantage. So about a 1,000 gold change. Overall, it's staying extremely even between these two teams, though. It's something that the top lane for Jewel Bagel is going to need to be a little bit more defensive. He's got to get in a situation where he can actually get a farm because he's already fallen 2 levels behind Soulkorean. When they get into the team fights, that's going to be a huge difference.
And Soulkorean has also picked up that Phage, so that's going to be a pretty big power spike for him. And if he's able to get a couple of those slow procs, it might force Jewel Bagel to pop his ultimate prematurely, because if Jax gets going, gets that passive onto those max stacks, and just continues to pound on you with the ultimate as well as the empowered strike, it's going to start to hurt. And even though Jewel Bagel is really stacking health at this point, he just picked up another health crystal, he won't be able to take out Soulkorean, and he won't be able to handle this damage, and Soulkorean's already just abusing him at this point. He's trying to lifesteal it back using those axes, but every single time SoKorean gets the chance, he's jumping on him, dealing in powered strike, and trying to push him back.
Yeah, if we take a look at the kills, it's staying extremely even, 4 to 5, which is very indicative of the gold amount as well. But before we talk about that, a fight's about to go down here. If anyone gets out of position, Hi could pull them back into the turret. Rupture going down, not hitting anyone, but the Sona ultimate is going to hit too. A ton of damage coming out from Graves as well. The first Cho'Gath is going to fall. Morgana comes in. She's going to be able to zone out Dead Joe and Chrysanthos, but it's not actually going to be able to hit into anything. It looks like they're going to be able to go for a dive if they want to. They don't have a whole lot of minions available to them, but it doesn't matter because they've got a lot of health still, and they're going to be able to ride this next minion wave to the second turret destruction for their team.
Unfortunately for Heartbeat, he hasn't been able to land a good Morgana ult yet. I think the only Morgana ult that has been able to channel fully and get the stun was on Chrysanthos, and Probo was right there to negate it. SoKorean actually farming out Georgia Tech's jungle Jewel Bagel, trying to make him pay for it, but he's got the Vampiric Scepter as well as the Fade, so he's dealing enough damage to just be able to lifesteal out of that true damage. And this is the turning point where Jax is going to start to become scary. There it is. He could very well go for a dive if he continues to push this. Probo is there to try and turn it around. We'll have to see if he'll be able to do it.
Oh, he does miss the final hit for that. It's not going to be able to follow up to anything. But what we were talking about before is that the kills that Georgia Tech has available to them, they're on key targets. If you look at the laning of SoKorean and Heartbeat, they're up in CS overall. They're up in levels as well. But the thing is, they have not been having a major impact in the fights. The Morgana ults haven't been hitting like you were talking about, and we haven't even seen SoKorean join any of these team fights overall. And that's been a huge difference, and that's giving Georgia Tech even more of a lead. Up by about 1.5k gold now that the second turret has fallen. 22 minutes into this game. This is a really slow kill game so far, but it's exactly what both of these teams want to have happen. They want to minimize risk, but they also want to try to maximize as much advantage as they can get. But it's not in the right place for UCSD so far.
And Torch, it really seems like UCSD is rushing. Some of their plays have been not necessarily together, where someone would go in and someone would disengage, but they don't have the cohesion that Georgia Tech had. And that's what UCSD actually said before the game. They said, Georgia Tech has been playing a lot of ranked 5. They know how to play as a team. We want to make it so that doesn't come to pass. Georgia Tech is making sure that they don't get completely dominated in lane, and this is allowing their team play and their coordination to win out. That's what won them game 2, and if they keep playing like this, that's what's going to win them this series.
Yeah, they have been putting in a lot of work as a team. There's a lot of passion coming out from Georgia Tech. We were talking about before where these guys have come up from the open bracket from last season. They were not even a premier level school for the first season of Ivy Law, but now they're really wanting to try to prove themselves for their team. Once they made it into the Ivy Law Final Four, what they were spamming in chat every single practice game they had that, hey, we're training for DreamHack. But they wrote DreamHack without a C. They had a little bit of joking going on. So they're having a great time, but they're also taking this extremely seriously as well.
And they're training like the professional team would train. They are playing together as much as they possibly can. It's not 5 individual players. It's a cohesive unit, and it's showing in a lot of their fights. The disengages, the counter initiates, the teleports especially, where they can call it, and it looks like they might not be caught out because of the amount of control that Probo has. He's got the oracles on Lee Sin as well. He's doing a great job. And meanwhile, top lane, Jewel Bagel he could be going down into this joint. There goes the teleport. Here comes the fight.
Yeah, UCSD felt the pressure. They had to make something happen. They grouped up for the first time with SoKorean. It's going to be a 5v5, but they got Dragon on the side of Georgia Tech. It's going to be taken down by Jax, but a lot of damage coming out here so far. Heartbeat is going to be the first one to fall, with Divination falling soon after. That's going to be the tanky front line, and the AP damage gone from the team, but Diana's going to fall for the other side. A lot of kills falling here and there, but 4 for 1 so far. A lot of chase potential. It's going to be an ace overall.
And here comes Jewel Bagel. There's the execute. That's going to be an ace for Georgia Tech. UCSD was able to pick up the Dragon, but that is a small consolation prize. And another clutch teleport from Jewel Bagel, and we saw a little bit of disorganization. We're going to take a look at that replay again to highlight that. And actually, we're going to keep going live because Georgia Tech is taking out in this bottom turret. But if we take a look at this replay, we're going to see that if you watch Arknight, see, here comes the TP start. UCSD gets Dragon extremely low. Dragon actually is going to stay alive for a while. Jax jumping on Probo. Probo goes so low, but there's the crescendo coming out, and Jax making sure that he takes out the Dragon, but he's getting jumped out by Chrysanthos. Chrysanthos being pushed out of there. There goes Divination. Heartbeat getting dropped very quickly. Now watch Arcanite. Arcanite gets abandoned and he gets dropped. And there's the steamroll that Georgia Tech needs. Flash coming through from Sona. There's the Shirelias. And here comes the execute. Boom! There we go. That's an ace. And Georgia Tech working their advantage and playing like a team.
Yeah, UCSD had some great ideas. Arcanite was on the fringe of the fight the entire time, but the problem was that the escape route that the rest of his team chose to take was towards their bottom turret. He was caught off on the top. He had to come down to try to make some damage, but that put him in the entire group of Georgia Tech. He got eliminated. Heartbeat got eliminated. No more damage from the UCSD.
And unfortunately for Heartbeat, he also got completely separated in the beginning of the fight. He got dropped right away. I'm a little surprised that they put so much pain. Korean jumping on the Diana, but Diana, she's got dashes. She's gonna jump, no problem. I'm a little surprised that they put so much pain onto Probo. Probo dropped sub 300 at the beginning of that game, and Korean seemed really preoccupied at taking out that dragon and Chrysanthos was just pounding on him. And speaking of pounding, Korean forcing Jewel Bagel to pop his Shirelias. High grabbing Probo, and it looks like they're gonna try and engage this one once again. Crescendo going down onto 3 members, and Chrysanthos diving in. There's the Morgana ultimate, locking up Probo. Divination's gonna go extremely low, but there's the reset. Probo coming in once again. One Sonic Wave is gonna do it. There's the slow, and there's the kill. That's a double kill for Chrysanthos, and Georgia Tech is running away with this game 3. This could be a monumental upset if Georgia Tech can convert this series.
Yeah, they have to be feeling really good right now. We even saw that Jewel Bagel was able to escape from Korean in the top lane. It was a 1v1 going in the other team's favor, but they're going to be going for Baron right now. Korean has the potential to come in there here and lock everything up, but they have the vision available to them. They know that the danger is there from Jax. They're going to make sure that they shut him down as soon as he comes in.
And this is the Baron coming out. There's the smite coming down from Probo. Korean's trying to make something happen, but he just dies right away. Baron kill, Jax kill, Probo.
Yeah, they're all going to head back, spend a little bit of that hard-earned cash. They're not up in minion kills, but it doesn't matter. They've got those group objectives. 3 turrets down, 2 dragons in their favor, a Baron now as well. We're looking at 43,000 gold for Georgia Tech compared to 34, almost 35,000 for UCSD. That is a huge lead 27 minutes into the game. They're going to turn that into a lot of group fighting items at the moment. The Aegis is finished, the Abyssal Scepter is finished. We got a Zhonya's Hourglass on Chrysanthos, so he can jump in a lot faster as well. And then that Zeke's Herald to keep Dead Joe doing even more and more damage. So now that they group up, now they're going to be pushing mid. They're going to be doing a crazy amount of pressure onto UCSD.
And that pressure is only going to increase because Jewel Bagel just picked up his Frozen Mallet. Uh-oh. So now they're just not going to be able to get away from, UCSD is not going to be able to get away from Georgia Tech. Chrysanthos is able to chase so well. Heartbeat has not been a factor, and he really has been, him and Arcanite this entire season have been the go-to guys to make plays. They haven't been making plays. The Morgana ultimates have not been spot on. Surzoli getting caught out, but that's really not much, and the Blitzcrank hook actually missing on a snared support.
And that's the pressure of this game really coming into fruition for the team. A lot of damage is going to be put onto the Siege turret at the moment. UCSD realizes they can't do anything. They're just going to back off. They really need to just delay this as long as possible. If they don't lose an inhibitor, they're still in the game. If that first inhibitor falls, it's something that they're going to be having a huge trouble to come back from. It would be one of the biggest comebacks in the history of League of Legends.
And they're already in trouble because the Baron went down in favor of Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech they have complete control of the map. They have the oracles. They're gonna rotate top and push down this top turret, and then push down this top lane just because they can. They have all of their ultimates up. They can engage at any time. Shizoli has been an absolute assassin. Not really an assassin, but just the full lockup that Shizoli has been able to make on every single one of those crescendos has been so intimidating, as well as Jewel Bagel's ability to dive onto the backline and put pressure onto Arcanite, as well as Heartbeat. And it looks like we might see an engage. Corey.
Yeah, the engagement's going down. It looks like Georgia Tech is trying to focus on the turret. They're trying to take it down, but realizing that they can just switch it around, go for these players instead. If they will eliminate Cho'Gath and Blitzcrank, that's going to make it really easy for them. Morgana falling as well. This is looking very dire for UCSD.
And Chrysanthos popping the Zhonya's to be able to get out of there. And another brilliant crescendo from Shizoli. Full lockup under the turret. Jewel Bagel makes his presence known, gets out with sub 100 health. I have no idea how he survived that. To be honest, I have no idea how he survives half of the engagement, but he does. That's an inhibitor Georgia Tech. They're looking for the rotate. They want to win this game right now.
and that's what they're going to be trying to do. But So Korean delaying them as much as possible. They're keeping the players of Georgia Tech away from the Nexus turret, but that's going to allow them to go for this relatively undefended second inhibitor turret. As that falls, there's not going to be a whole lot of defenses here available for So Korean. Nothing for him to jump to. He falls down. It looks like Diana's going to go straight for the assassination on Corki. It's going to cost her life, but it was worth it, absolutely, as long as he types it into all chat.
It is. Hopefully he will type it into all chat and say it was worth it, because he was totally worth it. That was worth a second inhibitor, and now 4 members of Georgia Tech are rotating bottom for the third. No, it looks like a couple pings going down. They're going to go for the Dragon, but the two of those main carries for UCSD dead again. So Korean and Arknight. Well played, Georgia Tech. They are handling this like champs.
Yeah, only about 10 seconds left on the Baron buff. They are going to pick up that Dragon. They're going to back off here. 30 minutes into this game, they're up by 14,000 gold at the moment. A huge chunk of an advantage. Zhonya's Hourglass almost coming off cooldown for Diana right when Chrysanthos comes back from the graveyard. This is going to be a very scary second push here.
And look at all those major items that they just picked up. Jewel Bagel grabs the Frozen Heart. Probo gets the Ronduins. Shizoli gets another Shirelli's Reverie. Dejo with the Last Whisper. Chrysanthos with the Deathfire Grasp. This is a deadly team. As if they weren't deadly enough, this is last push, group up as 5, win the game, go to the final.
Yeah, they're really just going to need to defend their carries at the moment, keep Dejo in the back, but with everything else they have available to them, it's going to be very difficult for UCSD to actually get to him, even if he's in a relatively unsafe location. So they're going to try to go for their own red buff, realize that it's been taken, just back off from there.
And Probo rolling in, stealing the red buff from UCSD, as you mentioned, just to add insult to injury. Gut the jungle completely. They want to win as comprehensively as they can. They don't want to leave anything to chance, because Arknight is good enough that if he has the red buff, he could potentially kite down an entire team. I don't know if that's going to happen, considering Jewel Bagel has been completely up in his business this entire game, but here we go. This is the last push.
And
Georgia Tech.
There is a chance here for UCSD to come back. They're grabbing a lot of elixirs. They're still under a turret, so if Georgia Tech makes one small move that's not correct, or a nice Blitzcrank grab, they could have a chance, but Hi is going to actually be the first one to fall. Divination is going to be forced out of the fight as well. We see everyone else from Georgia Tech still pretty high on health, except for Probo. This is going to be the final fight, moving into the finals of the Ivy LOL Season 2 Premier League.
George, if you told me at the beginning of this game that Georgia Tech was going to upset UCSD, I would have told you were crazy. UCSD was the champion. They were undefeated. That's a surrender. That is GG Georgia.